Christopher finishes a test that took Einstein 3 days and just a few hours in 1990, impressing every faculty at the institution. Michelle, his older sister, notes he might start college early, but he isn't sure he wants to go. A soldier chastises Christopher for having a cartoon robot on his t-shirt on their way out, telling him that war is almost upon. Cosmo, the protagonist of a well-liked cartoon show, is the robot on that shirt. However, because anti-robot sentiment is increasing nationwide, the show gets canceled. Originally designed for their parks in 1955, Walt Disney first invented robots. Thereafter, mass manufacture of them became the primary source of labor worldwide. They worked without problems for years, but finally grow bored and rebel, demand rights of their own. The robots plan demonstrations headed by Mr. Peanut all throughout the globe. Arguments have little effect. Soon a battle between humans and machines starts. Anyone who keeps a robot at home is seen as a traitor. Humans are not doing well in war. Sergeant John shows on TV to explain why robots neither eat, sleep, or blink. For 2 years, humanity continues to battle only to lose repeatedly. One day, the inventor of Center Technologies, Ethan, invents the Neurocaster, a technology that links the human mind to drone bodies. Now humans can battle the robot army on equal grounds, and in just 2 weeks, the conflict is ended. Humans triumph, and Colonel Bradbury is considered the primary hero. Peanut meets with Clinton and Ethan to sign the Treaty of Surrender as over 6,000 robots are imprisoned in the exclusion zone in the desert. Sometime later, Ethan produces a smaller version of the Neurocaster for anyone to use at home. This model allows people to separate their brains so they may work and have fun concurrently. In 1994, Michelle is at home trying to remove the monitor on her ankle, but she needs to hide her tools as Ted bursts in using a Neurocaster. He scolds her for her actions and tells her that even if she fled from all her prior foster homes, he won't let her do it here. Michelle replies by pointing at the pile of material he's hoarding, suggesting that taking anything from the exclusion zone is unlawful. Afterward, she attends to class, where the teacher is also present in her Neurocaster outfit. All the children are ordered to put on their helmets, and when Michelle refuses to do so, she's sent to the principal's office. The lady notices on Michelle's profile that she lost her entire family and blames it on the conflict, so Michelle needs to clarify that it was actually a vehicle accident. Then, the principal adds that neurotherapy can help her forget for a few hours, allowing Michelle to relive a memory of playing on the beach with her brother. That day, he had a panic attack, and she soothed him through it. However, Michelle still refuses to put on the helmet and goes home. That night, Michelle dreams about the vehicle tragedy that killed her family. She had woken up at the hospital, and a doctor was watching her, but she couldn't remember their face. In the present, Michelle is startled awake by a noise outside. She glances out the window and detects a shadow moving in her yard, so she grabs a flashlight and goes out. Suddenly, she sees an eye mirrored in a bottle before the table crashes, scaring her into running back inside. She tries to notify Ted about the invader, but he's lost in the Neurocaster universe. When the burglar breaks in, Michelle hurries to hide under her bed. However, the invader is a robot and effortlessly lifts the bed to look at her with Cosmo's face. Michelle dashes to the corner of the room and tries to speak with Cosmo, who uses some motions to imply he's seeking for her. This robot can't speak and opens his head so Michelle can patch his voice circuit, but sadly, he only has a few pre-recorded sentences. Then, Cosmo pulls a picture of the siblings and keeps pointing between himself and Christopher, claiming they're the same person. Michelle doesn't believe him and roughly rips the photo from his grasp, causing him to crash against the shelves. The noise awakens Ted up, and he comes to the room to see Cosmo. He blames Michelle for this and yells at her, causing an argument that culminates with Ted slamming her into the robot. Cosmo performs the identical gesture that Christopher used to make, convincing Michelle of his claim before shoving Ted against the wall. An enraged Ted grabs a golf club and tries hitting Cosmo, who immediately breaks the club and pushes Ted again. This time, he ends up bleeding and rushes to contact 911 before Michelle tases him till he's unconscious. Afterward, Michelle and Cosmo get in Ted's car, and the robot simply removes the monitor from her ankle. Michelle doesn't know how to drive, but improvises when Ted comes after them in his Neurocaster. The automobile throws him off, and the couple manages to depart. The next morning, the car stops in the middle of the road because it has a flat tire. Michelle checks the trunk to grab the spare, but that one is damaged also. She continues pressing Cosmo with questions, so he says Christopher is alive somewhere and managing him from afar. When Michelle wonders how to find her brother, Cosmo gestures at Center's firm emblem on a sign. Using a Dr. Pepper can and additional gesturing, Cosmo recalls a doctor with spectacles, and Michelle wonders about waking up after the accident again. Now she remembers Dr. Amherst's face and how he told her that Christopher died in the hospital. Then Michelle brings out a map, and Cosmo points at a position in the midst of the exclusion zone. They'll need a strategy to break into such a risky area, and Michelle remembers all the illegal stuff Ted bought. There's a box in the car trunk with the address of the sender's P.O. box in New Mexico, so they decide to seek for that individual because they may know how to enter inside the zone. The duo gets on board a train for part of the journey and continues the other half on foot. In the evening, Michelle stops at a store for food, and when she comes out, she sees a truck approaching, so she drags Cosmo into an alley to hide. The driver turns out to be John, who unlocks the P.O. box the couple was looking for and pulls out a bundle of money. Then a man approaches with his Neurocaster to buy a gun from John. Suddenly, the client twists the weapon and threatens to shoot John, only to be hit by an electric shot that destroys the Neurocaster. This was done by Herman, John's partner robot, who helps him relocate the fallen equipment while discussing how to obtain its parts. While they're distracted, Michelle and Cosmo get inside the back of the truck. Meanwhile, Bradbury finds Ted's abandoned automobile. The next day, the vehicle arrives at an old mine near the exclusion zone. John and Herman take their fresh acquisitions inside, unknowing that Michelle and Cosmo are hidden in a box. While John and Herman debate over missing cables, Michelle tries to utilize the distraction to snoop around, but Cosmo unintentionally activates a singing fish and gives away their location. When John and Herman surround them, Michelle explains she simply needs a guide into the exclusion zone, but John thinks she's nuts. At that moment, the elevator moves up, and John assumes someone followed them, so the whole group hides. When the elevator comes back down, it reveals Bradbury. He announces that this place is now under the jurisdiction of the Robot Deactivation Task Force and orders John and Michelle step out with their hands up. John tries to pretend Michelle is his sister, but Bradbury recognizes her and asserts she's under arrest. Herman tries to shoot Bradbury with his electric beam, but Bradbury notices him and uses John as a shield. Then, Bradbury starts fire, destroying major areas of the room while everyone hurries to shelter again. When he corners the robots, Michelle comes out and smacks his arm with a fire extinguisher, only for Bradbury to seize it from her and destroy it. As the room fills with smoke, Michelle claps her hands to turn off the lights. Suddenly, the fish decorations start singing again, and Bradbury is distracted, so John shoots him from behind. His bullets do nothing to the Neurocaster's body, and Bradbury quickly destroys his gun before snatching John by the neck. Wanting to save him, Michelle and Cosmo capitulate. After throwing John away, Bradbury continues going toward the two, revealing that Cosmo is slated for deactivation. At that moment, Herman makes a big crane claw fall and sees Bradbury. Then the whole crew leaps into a mining car to leave. Unfortunately, John takes too long to get the appropriate key, and Bradbury gets enough time to escape. He shoots the cart to bring it down and tries to shoot Cosmo too, but Herman disarms him again, and now both robots start battling him. Michelle finds a bulldozer and locks Bradbury against the wall with it, forcing some boulders to fall and bury him as well. The mine is slowly crumbling, so the group had to get out to rescue themselves. Seeing his home coming down makes John shout in rage, and he yells at Michelle for ruining everything. He's interrupted by some unusual noises nearby, so the party goes to hide in a cave and watches scavenging robots moving around hunting for parts to rebuild themselves. When John spots an opening, he walks out and kills a robot so he can get into his garage, where he stores a van and a gigantic suit that Herman uses to grow himself bigger. After a lot of battling, Michelle gets John to help her. Minutes later, Michelle, John, and Cosmo are inside the van, which is being carried by Herman in the suit. They enter the exclusion zone, and Michelle sees all the shattered robots on the ground. During the trip, John relates the story of how he met Herman. During the war, John's unit lost a battle and was encircled by enemy. The troops were scheduled to be shot by the robots, but Herman noticed John crying and saved him instead. A few days later, the center drones found them and wouldn't listen to John when he attempted to assure them Herman was nice, so the couple had to run away to avoid being slaughtered. Meanwhile, Ethan is using his Neurocaster to revisit a memory with his deceased mother, but the equipment starts malfunctioning, and he has to switch it off. He rants at his scientists and demands to know what's happening to the company's systems, so the men explain that Christopher has escaped. If they don't find him by Friday, the whole company will collapse. A distressed Ethan subsequently meets with Bradbury in the virtual world. He knows that Cosmo is on Bradbury's hunt list and offers him a deal. Instead of sending Cosmo to the authorities, Ethan wants him to hand him over to his company. In the mine, Bradbury's neurocaster is activated again. In the desert, the party is contemplating the possibility of entering an abandoned mall to seek for food. A robot sees them and throws a fridge at them, breaking the van's front window. Herman tries to flee away, but the attacker keeps hurling items and forces him to tumble. The vehicle lands upside down, and the group is instantly encircled by robots who grab them and carry them to the mall. There's an entire civilization of robots within, from entertaining models to basic domestic equipment. There's also a gigantic one outside that watches at them through the glass. Mr. Peanut shows up and apologizes for capturing them, explaining that the robots thought they were dangerous scavengers. When Michelle tells him about her dilemma, Peanut adds that Dr. Amherst visited this facility once and that he has a PhD in human-machine interaction. Peanut swiftly kicked him out, so he doesn't know where the doctor is now. Michelle wants to go out to continue her search, and John tells her how hazardous it is at night, so he encourages her to wait until morning. In private, Michelle remembers her last Christmas with Christopher and how infrequently she saw him since he went to college. She can't stop crying at the memories, and Cosmo hugs her before playing the cartoon that the siblings used to watch together. Soon, a slew of other robots join the watch party, which is observed by Peanut. Later, when everyone falls asleep, they're unexpectedly awakened by a male robot asking for Christopher. Cosmo raises his hand, and the robot offers him a postcard that Amherst left for him. There's an address put on the card and a note saying that Amherst will be waiting for him. That address is in scavenger territory, so they can't enter it without a plan. Peanut overhears everything and introduces them to a training robot that continues malfunctioning while trying to demonstrate how to battle the scavengers. John feels he may be a liability, but the robot impresses him by blasting baseballs at fast speed. In the morning, Bradbury makes it to the exclusion zone and watches the mall from afar, observing that the group is leaving in Peanut's car. They spend the entire day driving, and by dark, they eventually arrive to an abandoned amusement park where the location is meant to be located. Michelle observes lights in one of the attractions and believes that someone must be around. Suddenly, a giant clown head activates, and terrifying robots begin appearing around the adventurers. The group quickly starts running as they shoot at any adversary that gets too close. Peanut tries to converse with them, but the terrifying robots only know how to snarl. The group reaches the building with the lights only to learn that the doors are phony. The robots are approaching closer, and they don't know what to do. Suddenly, more lights are switched on around the park, and music starts playing on the speakers while fire pours out from a few statues. The robots back off in panic as a trapdoor opens under the group, leading them to slip down into a concealed tunnel. In a subterranean area, they eventually find Amherst, who is pleased to see the postcard in Cosmo's hand. Michelle quickly pushes him and wants details on Christopher, so Amherst discloses that the boy is at Center's Labs in Seattle. After the accident, Christopher was put through some regular examinations, and the MRI equipment informed the hospital that he was special. He was exactly why they needed to win the war, so the doctor let Center take him and lied to Michelle about his death. Amherst now activates a computer that plays a video of an experiment. Christopher had been comatose, and they assumed it was permanent, so they connected his brain to the neurocaster network to make it operate. Amherst isn't proud of this, but thinks it was necessary to rescue the world and reminds out that Christopher would have died in bed if they hadn't taken him. 13 months after the beginning of the experiment, Christopher woke up, and Amherst intended to disconnect him. However, Ethan resisted and threatened to kill Amherst if he attempted. The doctor decided to go away, but before he departed, he made a little connection between Christopher and the outside network. He also provided him the location of the mall so he might find a new family among the robots. Michelle points out that Christopher already has a family, and John punches Amherst for her. At that moment, Bradbury appears outside and shoots the entry to access the underground. He slides down too and finds the room vacant. The lights abruptly go out, and Peanut attacks Bradbury from behind to smash him against an electrical grid. Bradbury's neurocaster is shocked for a few seconds, and he drops his rifle, but he manages to shove Peanut off to recover. A fight begins as Peanut unveils a sword hidden inside his cane, but Bradbury is still stronger and quickly overpowers him. The rest of the group is sneaking out, but they freeze when they hear a disturbance. A number of military neurocasters materialize in the air and land around the heroes, urging them to surrender. The training robot starts shooting balls with such strength that he manages to damage a few of their helmets. All this is observed by Ethan through the cameras, and he instructs the men to seize Cosmo by killing everyone else if necessary. Cosmo throws a ball to distract a soldier, and Michelle appears behind him, shooting paint at him until his propeller malfunctions and he crashes into the ceiling. When a second soldier comes to take her, Amherst shoots him down and says he knows a way out. John and the other robots keep on fighting the remainder of the group, defeating them with makeshift weaponry. In the underground room, Bradbury pulls Peanut's hat off and says he broke the covenant, therefore what happens to his family is his fault. At the same time, a group of military arrive at the mall. Then Bradbury comes out and begins shooting at attractions indiscriminately. Amherst encourages his buddies to run before he comes out to comfort. Bradbury, daring to shoot, hesitates to kill another human being, so Ethan takes over a neurocaster and shoots Amherst himself. The doctor falls into some debris and dies when a metal rod impales him, which leaves Bradbury questioning his principles. Michelle and Cosmo try to flee away, but they're surrounded by soldiers. One of them pulls Michelle down while the other grabs Cosmo to fly away. Bradbury shoots the neurocaster holding Michelle and advises her to go home before he flies off too. In the morning, the party goes to the mall and finds it in rubble with most of the robots destroyed. Meanwhile, Cosmo is taken to the center laboratory to reconnect with Christopher's body. As Ethan connects him to the system, Bradbury discovers he has been misled too and that Cosmo isn't just a robot, which makes him upset because he was sent to hunt a boy. Ethan reminds him that this youngster helped him win the battle and believes that sacrifice is essential to advance a species. Back in the mall, John assures Michelle that she shouldn't give up and that he'll aid her if she decides to keep fighting. Then Michelle checks Amherst's computer to confirm it has the codes to depart the exclusion zone and the location of the Seattle lab. The computer also says that if they unplug Christopher, the entire neurocaster system and the firm itself will go down. At that moment, Peanut comes back and reminds her that he signed a treaty to achieve peace, but Michelle changes his mind by pointing her that the attack on the mall renders the treaty void. Using a collection of abandoned trucks, John, Michelle, and all the remaining robots depart the desert and make their way to Seattle. Herman even gets a new big suit and uses it to start tossing items at the center labs, smashing their windows. Ethan instantly sends all his soldiers out so Herman and John can begin running away to make them follow, giving an opening for Michelle and Amherst's computer to sneak into the building. John shoots at the advancing soldiers while Herman smashes them with his huge hands. However, one of the neurocasters self-destructs and brings Herman's suit down. When a soldier tackles John, Herman shows he has a second suit within the first and saves his companion so they may keep running. Once the task force is far enough away, the remainder of the robots also join the conflict, which is seen by Bradbury on the cameras. An enraged Ethan runs to his office to put on a secret helmet that allows him to operate a special neurocaster and joins the fight too, effortlessly knocking down most of the robots. In the main lab, Amherst's computer appears to be a deranged, aggressive robot to scare the scientists away. Michelle confirms her brother is still alive, but to talk to him, she'll need a neurocaster. At the same moment, Bradbury goes outside and informs Peanut where to find Ethan, saying he has finally found someone less human than a robot. Then he disconnects his neurocaster, finally exiting the war. When Michelle puts on the helmet, she finds herself in the memory of her final Christmas with her brother. She informs Christopher that she wants to save him, but he explains that his body is weak and disconnecting him will kill him. He doesn't want to live the rest of his life in this state, though, so he advises his sister to do it anyhow. In the meantime, Ethan smashes Herman's final costume. The tiny guy is also harmed, and John rushes to help him, but it's too late. At that point, Ethan is found by Peanut, who says he wants to renegotiate the deal. In the lab, Michelle refuses to disconnect her brother because she doesn't want to lose him again. Christopher maintains he hasn't felt anything in years, therefore he can't be saved, but her pals definitely need the aid. After a lot of tears, Michelle says farewell to Christopher and returns to the real world to finally disconnect him. All the neurocasters instantly go down, and the robots celebrate their win. John is still heartbroken over Herman, whose head suddenly opens and reveals a tiny robot inside. Chaos sweeps across the planet as all computers stop working. The press starts revealing Center's experiments on a human infant, and Ethan is jailed while people begin clamoring for the exclusion zone to be brought down. In the desert, John and the robots help Michelle film a video in which she invites people to leave their helmets behind and enjoy the world again. Meanwhile, Cosmo is thrown in the trash, but his head suddenly twitches. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a comment about your favorite movie, and we will make it next. Thanks for watching.